Hey guys, we're back. Fourth episode. We're back at it. This time it's a little different. We have two topics and a budget challenge again, but this time we have our very first guest. Say hello, guest.
What's going on, guys? I'm Gabe. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome,
Yeah, no
awesome.
problem.
Yeah, we're really happy to have you. We've been planning to have a guest ever since we first started this because this is a really good way to keep server interaction going and getting members involved.
Oh, so
To start things off, let's dive right into it. Our 20-second draft just wrapped up in terms of the drafting. We're now in our regular season seeding. Would anyone like to start with some of the teams they liked?
yeah, I mean, I
Sure.
can go ahead. Yeah, Gabe, if you want to go ahead, you can. You're the guest. Why don't you go first?
Sure. So I'm going to throw out a team that I think we all like. And this might be the most exciting team for me only because it's one of the few teams starting a new player who we've never seen, and that would be the Lithuania Grateful Dead. It's the team built around Zion. And I've just been, ever since Zion really blew up around the middle point of this year, I've been waiting to draft him or see someone else do it. And I think that LP actually did a better job with this team than I could have done or had been thinking. Just to list off the starting lineup, it's John Stockton, Reggie Miller, Lee Jones, Zion Williamson, and Rudy Gobert. And I love this fit for Zion.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. He has really good spacing, really good playmakers to work with, a really good defensive cover. It's a really good Zion team.
Yeah, it is for sure. And plus, Stockton feels like the perfect point guard for this situation. Like I do not really like Stockton that much, but
No.
for this scenario, I mean, he works good. His passivity or however you pronounce it, I don't know. It works here because he doesn't need to have an active role. He can
Right,
get Zion the ball and Zion can go to work.
right. Exactly what Stockton did with Malone.
Yep. Exactly.
Stockton is a fraud, by the way. That Malone Stockton fed off Malone. Malone didn't feed off Stockton. Just want to get that out there.
Of course. And what I will say about this team, one of the criticisms I saw is that the team lacks some creation and someone to initiate. Stockton's more of a facilitator than an initiator, which is fair, and that puts a lot on Zion. But what I think is that this team it's very balanced in that sense. Everyone has a role that they fill into, and you have someone like Reggie coming off screens and with his off-ball gravity, creation might be a little lower. He's helping to open some lanes and get open shots for his team. Teammates to make us really nicely here around Zion, and I love this team.
And even the Bengals, yeah, exactly. Like that's pretty elite. I'm not gonna lie. They might honestly be my favorite team in the draft. I think LP did a good job with it. Plus, they have a cool logo.
Great.
So.
Oh yeah, great job
team.
to LP.
I think a team that I like too, and at first I was kind of like, this is, I don't know, I feel like it's mid, but it grew on me as people started talking about it more, and as I looked at it more, I really like Team Canada. It's cool seeing Gus Williams start. It's definitely something I don't think I've seen before. So the lineup's Gus Williams, Brandon Roy, Chris Middleton, Tim Duncan, and Joel Embiid. Bench, Steve Francis, Joe Johnson, Roger Brown, Larry Johnson, and LaMarcus Aldridge. It's not like gonna wow you by any means. Like it's not gonna be exciting, but it's gonna be a team that's gonna get wins. It's gonna get points. It's gonna have great defense. All around, I really liked it.
Yeah, this is something the server was talking about earlier in our team discussion. But how do you guys feel about Tim Duncan and Joel Embiid as a front court fit?
I like it. I like it a lot. I think offensively, I think people assume you can't really run two post threats together, but you can. It worked. We've seen Duncan work with another great big before, and Embiid spaces the floor. Embiid's whole game isn't just operating out of the post. He'll step out to the 3-point line and try to play like a guard a little bit. He'll do his pump fakes with his super slow fake and shot. I think the fit works. I think Duncan's passing makes up for some of Embiid's woes, and he's not a bad passer. He's a willing passer. It's not his strong suit. So I like the fit offensively, and then defensively, Duncan's obviously an all-time great rim protector. Joel is one of the best in today's game, and they're a fantastic fit together, in my opinion.
Yep. Yeah, overall, this is a really well built team. Chris Middleton here is also really valuable. I think his shot creation is perfect on a team like this.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not like a crazy huge Chris Middleton fan. I think he's pretty streaky, but like in this situation, like I feel like he's pretty well insulated and like he can get his shots off and it's not going to be an issue.
Right.
Totally. He's a difficult shot maker is how I like to describe him.
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to get taking too many difficult shots here. I mean, Duncan and Embiid are both guys who really demand double teams down in the post.
Right.
So he should be getting some very easy looks, especially with Roy getting deserved defensive attention and Williams Gus attacking the rim. It lines up for Chris Middleton to get some open looks and do what he does best.
Yeah, overall, the offensive ceiling on this team is just really, really high.
Totally. I think a team with some elite wings can give them some trouble on the defensive side, but they might outscore everyone. They could outscore everyone, and they have the rim protection to at least deter a lot of the great players.
Right. Let's see. There was one I wanted to throw in. Let me find it.
And it's my team, so yeah.
No. No.
You're probably going to roast me later, which is exactly what I planned for. So I'm okay with that.
There was one I really liked. This is more of a fun mention than it is a top team, but I think List had a really, really, really fun team this draft, the Toronto Raptors.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think he did a good job. I think it allows Bernard King to be the offensive engine, which is kind of what he is. And I really like that. I'm not a fan of the bench per se, but I do think that like Bill with Sheed is just insane defense. Peyton's defense on the outside, and Corvus not a bad defender either.
Good team defender
nice,
at least.
Yeah, and it's nice to have his shooting, and then obviously Bernard can thrive in that situation.
Yeah, I like the team a lot, and one thing I want to note that Liam recently pointed out is that List has definitely taken away the defensive title from Birdie. His teams have been so defensively oriented, even if this one has some weak wing defense, that has become his forte, and I like to see that the title's been passed along the List.
For sure. You have another team you like, Gabe, or?
Totally. So one team that, at the start, I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about it, but that is the Akron Goodyear Wingfoots. And typically, I've been someone who's criticized not having one of the top tier guys. If you don't have one of the definite first round guys on your team, I'm usually a little lower. But 21 Luka is definitely an upgrade over 20 Luka, and I think he has the talent to fill that role. And this is almost the perfect team for him. This is the team that allows him to be in that heliocentric offense if he wants. He can also take a step back, and there's a lot of secondary creation with Ginobili. Towns is a great passer. I think this is a team that allows him to do what he does best, but then when he gets gassed, which does happen, he can take a step back and everyone else can fill in the void.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. And it's good defensive cover for Karl Anthony Towns, too, because as we know, that's a big deterrent of why people don't draft him. And having Battier and Nance out there too is just really nice to have. And then off the bench having Bo Outlaw, who's a good defender, and McDyess, who's also a pretty solid defender himself. That's really nice to have too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Totally. So I think this is a very cool team, and I was surprised by how it turned out. But good job to Benstro.
Yep, good job, Benstro.
Benstro, I love you. I know you. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was going to throw in just another team for the meme, because y'all will probably laugh at this, but shout out to the Utah Jazz for starting my man IT4.
Oh my God.
Are you really allowed to call him your man?
Oh, man, you call him out every time. This is going to be a thing. Like Isaiah Thomas is going to get mentioned every time now. It's so funny. My God.
No, you go ahead with your Benstro thing, and I'll go back to gassing the Utah Jazz.
Oh, okay. Well, I just want to say good job, Ben Stro. We love you. I know you're having a tough time over in my draft right now, but you're gonna get through it. It'll be okay. Um. Anyways, yeah, you can go back to casting the Utah Jazz.
All right, so the Utah Jazz. Let's go. Isaiah Thomas, Danny Green, Paul Pierce, LeBron James, Tyson Chandler. That's good.
Yeah, it is. It is good, and I mean, it's kind of basic, but like it's a good LeBron team.
Basic.
But I think it's pretty basic. I don't know. Having Pierce with LeBron is kind of funny though, because those two didn't get along, so that's pretty funny.
Pierce is a good off-ball functioner for LeBron though.
But Andy built this team, and shout out to Andy.
Shout out to Andy, my Cavs homie.
He's an interesting character. But yeah, he's did a good job with this team.
Yeah. One thing about this team, sorry, go Kev, go.
Actually, one thing I will point out is that if you want a good defensive cover for a guy like Isaiah Thomas, Danny Green actually does fit that bill pretty well.
Yeah, he does. And Paul Pierce is a pretty good defender himself too.
Oh yeah. Okay, go ahead, Gabe.
So one thing me and Ian were talking about before the show is that it's gotten to a point, you guys call this team boring and basic, and I agree, it's a good team. But we're at a point now where Jordan and LeBron teams, with how expensive they are, it's very hard for them to stand out. And they're generally good teams, but they're boring. So I want someone to try and change the meta a little bit. And if someone is able to come up with something that's really unique with one of those teams, I think it would be good for the server and for the meta as a whole to just switch up from the basic builds around these two guys.
Yeah,
and you know what? I tried last draft, but nobody liked it. So I'll cry later. But yeah, I tried.
Cry to us now.
Jordan and tried with Jordan and Grant Hill. Yeah, but hey, you know what? You win some, you lose some. You have fun drafting. That's the whole point.
Yeah, I think. Shout out to my Gabe. Gabe might remember this one all the way back to ATD5. I think my favorite draft of server history. I had LeBron James and Connie Hawkins, and that was such a fun offense.
Arenas,
yeah, that's a pretty
someone else in there.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool.
Jaylen Brown in there. Yep, I remember that team.
Jaylen Brown, shout out Cardiac.
Shout out Cardiac. Jaylen Brown sucks.
Yeah, Jaylen Brown is awful. Just wanted to let you know that. A team that I actually really like, they got a really, really fun trio. It's the Austin Bats, Cecil's team.
Oh, boy.
Tony Parker, Raja Bell. Obviously, those guys are borderline starters. Bell, sometimes probably not. But then he has Tracy McGrady, Julius Erving, and Bill Walton. That is really cool. I really like that. I like that a lot. The talent's high, and then his bench is De'Aaron Fox. Shout out to my Kings. I'm wearing a Kings jersey right now. Go Kings. Next year's the year. And then
for the first pick.
Then Dick Van Ardsdale, Eddie Johnson, Tom Chambers, and Nikola Vucevic. Just a really cool team. Got some new names in there that I don't normally see drafted a lot. So I thought it was pretty cool. Thought I'd give it a shout out.
Yeah, that was a cool team.
Also, shout out to Skunk for the Harlem Money. You built a pretty damn good Wilt Chamberlain team.
The Harlem Money is really cool, actually.
Yeah, they're a pretty good squad. The bench is okay. I kind of cringe on the inside when I see Duncan Robinson. I'm not a huge fan. He's kind of expensive.
Duncan Robinson, the $2 player.
Yeah.
You mean glorified Chris Mullin?
Whoa!
Oh my God! I remember when Gabe said that, and Kev was more or less like, "I think you're going to tank my team now," with that comment. But yeah, I really like that build. I did a Wilt Chamberlain, Rashard Lewis team too, and I really liked it. Lewis is like the perfect guy to go with Wilt.
He's become the standard pairing. I've seen that on a lot of teams.
Yep.
It makes sense. It's a good fit.
This was a perfect team for Skunk to get out her Kyrie bias because Kyrie Wilt is really sick.
Yeah, it's cool for sure. It's cool. Plus, Kyrie this season was much better off ball than he normally is.
Oh,
so I think it's pretty good, where the offense can still kind of run through Wilt, which it kind of has to, because it's Wilt.
Well, yeah.
Wilt will rip the ball from you if he needs to. And then having Pressey as an ancillary, and oh my god, I'm so bad with that word. Ancillary playmaker, that's pretty cool too. And then Carter can do a good amount of scoring himself. So I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
So should we talk about the I like all the teams. That's usually me, and then I have to unfortunately X somebody out, but those are the teams that I like pretty much. I don't know about you, Kev.
I'm not sure. But back real quick to the comment about Wilt needing to run offense. I wanted to shout out Milt for this the other day. But Milt sent some good proof of Wilt being capable to run in a pick and roll, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, I feel like Wilt would totally be able to run in a pick and roll. I don't have a ton of I mean, I've watched a few of his games because I'm a huge Wilt fan, obviously, but I feel like he could pretty much do anything he really wanted. If Wilt wanted to shoot threes today, Wilt's going to shoot threes. He's going to do what he wants. So
he's going to shoot them totally. Will he make them?
That's the question.
The Giannis approach.
The Giannis approach. But I think I'll start off with a team that I really didn't like, and I think we kind of agreed on all of this. It's Sully's Team USA. Not the craziest. The transition game is going to go crazy, but
what is 3-point shooting?
Yeah, exactly.
We can ask OG about that.
Oh God.
So my it's a criticism. Allen Iverson and Magic, it's not a bad fit per se. You can make it work. No. If you're spending this much draft capital on Magic Johnson, you want to put the right players around him. You want to put players that fit with him, not just ones that aren't bad with him. And it just doesn't feel like a necessary fit. If Iverson was coming off the bench and being staggered with Magic more, it would make sense, but he doesn't really have the personnel to be staggering Iverson as much like that. So it's a team where you have a player who doesn't mesh well with him. The shooting really isn't there. I do like, similar to what we saw in Naz's team last draft, Ewing will step out, and he may even be taking some threes today, but the spacing just really isn't there.
Yeah, the spacing's a question. I think Jrue Holiday is fine as a spacer in 21. I just don't think this is his year, though. I mean, he just hasn't been that good in the playoffs at all. But
that's the thing. In the playoffs, your efficiency pretty much dies.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I get to the question of is Magic's playoff rise enough to offset Jrue? Well, not sure.
To offset Jrue and Iverson, they both have decreases.
Exactly.
Iverson, I think in the 01 playoffs was a -3, somewhere around there. I think his true shooting was around 48%.
Yeah.
So it's just a bit of an odd team.
It is, but I think too at the same time, it can be cool. In transition, that team is gonna be pretty. They're gonna score quite often, but the bench didn't do him any favors. I think having only Luol Deng as a pretty nice 6-man. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Matisse Thybulle.
It was an unnecessary pick.
He didn't need him. Yeah, he didn't need him. And I don't even know who Rodney Rogers is, so I'm not even going to comment on that.
Rogers.
That's where my basketball knowledge stops of players is at Rodney Rogers.
Rogers. I know everybody, but not Rodney Rogers.
Pretty much, yeah. So yeah, that was the team that I don't know. It just didn't work for me. And this is like Sully's like 5th time drafting Patrick Ewing, which, hey, dedication. But I don't know. It just didn't work for me. Probably going to have to put another "We love you, Sully" message at the top of this.
No, we hate you, Sully. Hatred.
We do not. I don't know if you guys have a team.
Yeah,
go ahead,
I have a team that on first glance, I don't love, but if I'm not seeing something, please talk me out of it. And that would be the Boston Celtics. I think people's criticism, Boston Celtics, my first thought is Thurman feels unnecessary here. I think you want to take advantage of KG's defense, and you don't need to go with someone who's this defensive heavy. His rolling offense isn't very useful next to KG. I also think the scoring isn't really there. It's just an odd fit. Someone like Tatum, he's playing a lot in isolation. He's not moving a ton without the ball. He's not going to be your lead scorer. Garnett's playmaking works, but it's just an odd fit. I don't think the scoring's there. I've been someone who doesn't like the criticism of Tatum, where you say, if he's not a 4, you're not maximizing him. I think he can play the 3. I think he's very capable of it. But this feels like one of those teams where wish he would see more minutes at the 4 than he might be seeing, and that might change if Ingles comes on the court, and you can slide everyone down, but I'm just not seeing how this team puts itself above the competition in the league.
Yeah, that's fair, because like Tatum in 2021 absolutely was, like, after his COVID wore off, he was a phenomenal scorer. But I don't know if it's enough to be your top option on a KG team.
I think
there should be a more balanced approach. It's just I don't know if that secondary scorer is necessarily there.
Right. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Because if Tatum falls apart, you also have this. Something I will give Liam credit for is that KG's offense definitely isn't too resilient. It's like if Tatum falls apart, KG might too, and it's not looking pretty.
Yeah, KG just is like really good for defense because he's so versatile. And
he's
I think
a regular
that's
season
the thing.
god.
I think that I like the KG Thurman situation just because it allows KG to roam more instead of being necessarily focused on one player, and he can help because Nate Thurman's the best post defender ever. I'm just going off the top of my head here.
Yeah.
But I don't mind it. I mean, Thurman's gonna chuck, so you got to deal with that on offense. But he isn't a complete liability. But defensively, it's pretty. I mean, that's tough
Ben
to
Wallace,
score.
but willing.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you guys think about Donovan Mitchell, 21 Mitchell, as a starter in this?
I think he's absolutely capable. Because I think his playmaking jump makes him a $5 to $7 player.
Yeah, I think he's a pretty good player too. I asked this question a lot, why take Devin Booker for $4 more when he can just have Donovan Mitchell for $3 or $4 less?
Right.
I just don't see the exact purpose of why we can start Devin Booker but not Donovan Mitchell.
Right.
Yeah, so I guess this is one of the more elite defensive teams in the league. I'm not a big fan of the offense, but I just wanted to talk it out with you guys. And I think you guys convinced me a little more of how important the defense will be in the KG Thurman fit on that end.
Oh yeah.
The defense will be phenomenal come playoff time. Just that the offense ceiling is interesting.
And I think it's fine too having Jaylen Brown there because, well, first off, this obviously has to be cardiac. Can't not be him. So I mean, I don't think that it's necessarily bad having Jaylen Brown there as kind of a secondary scorer to Tatum, which is what he was in real life, I feel. So, it's not necessarily a bad thing. I just don't know how well it matches up against other, these are our mini dream teams that we make. I say that. And I think it's hard to match up with some of these guys. I don't know how well it would match up with, say, Reggie Miller and Eddie Jones or
Right.
Ray Allen and Andre Iguodala. Like it's like you got to deal with that.
Mhm.
So I like it, but I don't know how high the ceiling is.
I mean, I'm scanning. I think this has to be the worst offense in the league. I don't really see another competitor. So it's if you think this defense, I think the defense will be very useful in the playoffs if they make it there.
Mm.
That's my thing with this team. Don't want to run into them in the playoffs, but will they be there?
True. I think a team that I wasn't crazy on, and at first I thought it was cool, but then like the more I looked at it, it just didn't make a lot of sense to me. It was the Thunder. They just they kind of were a bit disappointing to me. I think that having English and Barkley is kind of redundant. I think someone said that earlier, and I totally agree with that. And I'm just totally purging your comment, but like I agree with that because like they're both kind of like primary guys,
Right.
and the bench. I just like I'll mention one of the guys later, but like the only guy I really like on that bench besides the guy I'll mention later is David Thompson. And Jonathan Isaac, I just don't know why we draft him, to be quite honest.
He's a good defender.
Yeah, but is he like the best one for $2?
No, I think when he was $1, he was an absolutely worth it pick.
Yeah, I think anybody's fine for $1, but when it gets up to $2, like what
that's
happened
when
with
it starts
Kerry
becoming
Kittles.
more. Yeah, right. Kerry Kittles for $2 is disgusting.
Yeah, I won't do that. But yeah, this team just kind of, I don't know, it kind of disappointed me a little bit. But I think it'll probably just miss the playoffs.
Yeah. Speaking of teams that, sorry, go ahead.
I'm just gonna say the one guy you even like on the bench, David Thompson. His fit is not great with English and Barkley. He can't really see minutes with them, but you don't want him. Those guys are going to be on the court a lot, so his play time is limited. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Exactly, I agree.
So a team, the last team I'll cover. Do you guys get the point of Baltimore? Like, is it just me, or do they feel very like underwhelming?
I've been saying this the entire draft. I think Trey and McAdoo is tough to cover for defensively. I think you can easily cover for one. I don't think this team has the personnel to cover for both, and I think it would be difficult to make it. I think in the regular season, they could see some success. Their bench, they have some nice bench pieces, but the distribution of the draft capital is a little weird.
Yeah.
I have a tough time with this team.
I think it's like an odd team. Like, when I saw it, I was kind of like, were we in the same draft? Like, it just seemed weird. Like, I don't know. Like, I think PG and Clay is enough cover for Trae Young, but I'm not sure Kevin McHale is enough cover for Bob McAdoo.
At least not late 80s McHale.
Yeah. And obviously McHale's a good defender, but I just don't think he's like a top tier one that can cover easily for McAdoo. Like we see like Giannis paired with McAdoo a little bit. Usually you try to get somebody who's a good cover for him. But yeah, this team, and why do we draft Gary Harris? Can someone ask me?
He had a really fraudulent 3-and-D season, and people still believe in it. It's I don't know if this is the right word, but the team just overall feels that wouldn't be the right word, but in terms of overall construction, it's just super underwhelming.
Yeah,
I will give them some credit. I think their offense, at least in the regular season, will be very hard to stop. I don't think there's many teams that are built to stop a McHale McAdoo scoring punch, like 1-2 punch. I think that is a ton of scoring, and they complement each other pretty well. The passing between them isn't as fantastic with McHale there, but McAdoo can stretch the floor. He's giving space to McHale. They aren't really operating in the same spaces, so unless they run into Garnett and Thurman, they're going to give you trouble. And then you've got Thompson.
This is a team that Skunk probably will get away with for voting.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
she obviously doesn't like PG very much, but it's not like a team where it's obvious.
Right. Yeah. This team gets lucky by the fact that Paul George can guard twos, because I don't know how you benefit from putting an overrated defender in Klay Thompson next to Trae Young.
Yeah, I mean Klay's overrated. He's still like a positive, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
He's not like this like lockdown 3-and-D that you like everyone claims him to be. And I'm not a big fan of Trae Young, but like his scoring here is definitely gonna help.
Oh yeah, Paul George was
really
kind of
good
a perfect.
This year.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So those are the teams I really wasn't a fan of. I don't know if you guys have any more.
I think there's one team that I think the three of us probably all aren't huge fans of, and that would be the Charlotte Hornets. I think if I look at your team from 3 drafts ago, Kev, your Nash and Dirk team, this feels like a clear step down from that in basically every aspect. I think Malone Kemp fit works, but there's too much overlap for the draft capital that was spent there. I think the defense is going to have a really rough time. I think Matthews isn't good enough to cover for Nash. It's an odd fit. Stoudemire is their best bench player, and how much time is he realistically seeing when you have a Malone Kemp front court? Virtually none. Yeah, very little. So it's just a very odd team for me, and they're going to score a ton in the regular season. They're going to give up a ton of points in the regular season.
Right.
But come playoffs, I'm not sure how I feel about them.
Yeah, I'm not. I had them down. Like I've been looking at them for a while. Wes Matthews, Walter Davis seems really underwhelming. After you get Nash, Malone, and Kemp, which are just like I feel like perfect Nash guys. And then getting Amari off the bench, I think Amari will see time wherever Malone or Kemp is out. So like if one's out, then Stoudemire's in, and then like if Kemp comes out, Stoudemire will fit in next to Malone. So it's like I think you'll see a decent amount of time. It's just the rest of the guys on the bench. I know Kev and I both like Jerry Sloan a lot. He'll see some decent time. He's a really good defender.
Yeah.
But like the rest of it, I don't realistically see Thad Young getting any minutes here.
Right. Yeah, it's really wonky construction. Like the construction is bad enough to where they may just like barely miss playoffs.
Yeah.
And I honestly think part of that is I think it's very difficult to build a team when you have 3 voices in the room, especially in budget. So I props to them for getting a team even this good with that many voices in the room, because it's very difficult to balance a budget when you have that many different ideas.
But props to them for being pretty much a trio GM team and still at least making a really solid effort out of it.
Yeah.
I think that about for me, I think that covers all the teams that I wasn't really a big fan of.
Same.
All right. All right. In that case, we can move to our next topic. Our next topic is more of a fun one, more of just one where we want to juice some of our favorite players. The topic is favorite $1 players that you want to take, but you're afraid or worried that they might be voted low.
Why don't you go anyone? Ahead,
okay, so I wanted to start with one I've done my best research on. I want to educate y'all on Happy Hairston.
Oh, dear God!
Okay,
I knew this was coming.
Happy Hairston in the 69-70 season, 18 points per game, 11 rebounds. He was an efficient player, nearly +5 relative to shooting. And get this, for a dude that was mostly playing the 4 in the 70s, he shot like 6 free throws a game. Like his free throw volume was really, really good, and he was hitting them efficiently. Like his in the 69-70 season, he was shooting nearly 80% from the free throw line with 5 attempts per game, playing at the 4 and 3. Which I think is really interesting. Like his efficiency's high. He's got good stats. Like there's even though it's limited because he's a 70s player, I've seen a couple small clips where he's playing off the ball and he's playing catch and shoot.
Okay. So what's a team where you think he would be useful on? What's a rough construction where you would be like, I want him, or is this a more you could slot him in on any bench?
I think mostly because he's more of a size guy. Because think about like Jerry Lucas, who's like a big spacer off the bench. If you wanted something close to like a $1 Jerry Lucas, who's a big guy that can space, I think he'd be a good fit there.
Okay.
Because I think in terms of his statistics, like his overall view, in this era he would be a considerably good big man spacer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's still really interesting for like a big in the 70s. He was shooting 5 to 6 free throws a game and making them at 80% rate.
I know, I like it. It's honestly a name I'd never heard of, but I think you made a good case for him.
Yeah, plus 5 RTS, high rebounds, high point rate. Let's see. I know this stat is more fraudulent, but I believe he was pretty high in win shares that year as well.
Interesting.
So that's an old school name I'm throwing out there. I know if Dudeness ever listens, he'll probably like this mention, but Happy Hairston.
Hairston.
I think Dudeness does listen. I usually send him the videos, so he'll probably enjoy that one.
That's cool.
I think a player that I really like to take is Maurice Stokes. He's like if Draymond was put in the 50s, but like his playmaking is like really, really good. And I've seen some footage of him. 70s fan has put out some footage I saw on his Patreon, and it's like pretty amazing how ahead of his time he was. And he was probably, outside of Bill Russell at that time, probably the best defender in the league. Because Bill Russell's just,
right. Bill Russell's Bill Russell.
But yeah, he is someone that I do like taking on occasion. I don't take him all the time, but I do enjoy taking him because he works. Like he actually works.
Yeah, I like it. So I'm going to list off 2 names in one because these 2 guys fill a similar role, and one of them just got drafted, I believe, for the first time this past draft, and there was some discussion about him today. So the first name I was going to throw out is Rajon Rondo. I think Rondo, it's pretty self-explanatory. He can come in if you have a traditional playmaking point guard who's a good enough defender. I think Rondo slots in pretty nicely. Just he can play defense. He's probably at this point an underrated guard defender. He's obviously not one of the top tier guys all time, but he's a level or 2 below that, and he's effective at what he does. And then he can make basic passes and just keep the offense flowing while your main playmaker's out. And then to follow up on that is Johnny Moore, who is a name I hadn't heard of until recently. But some of the discussion today talked about how he's one of the best guard defenders for a $1 player, and he's a more than capable passer. So I think those are 2 guys who, behind the right guards, could slot in nicely and keep your offense moving when your main playmaker's out.
Those are 2 good ones. I don't think I've ever taken Rondo before, but he works for certain teams. I know he worked on your 1 seed a couple drafts ago.
See, I slotted him in right behind Isaiah Thomas, and I think that's the kind of role you want him to fill.
Yeah, definitely. I think another player that I kind of enjoy to use too is Daryl Dawkins. I think sometimes people are afraid to pick him because he's probably the most inconsistent player of all time. But I mean, he's like a very good scorer, and he was pretty efficient in the year that we usually take him. I really appreciate his game. I mean, he was one of the most ferocious dunkers ever. So I think it's like pretty cool to see him get drafted. Even if it is for $1, he's like perfect value, I feel.
I like it.
Kev, do you have another one?
No. I want to go with one of the players I always juice, but at the same time, I'm trying not to. Like,
Does he
do I
fit
throw
into
in
the
like
mold of two guys I just named?
I don't know. Do I throw in a meme pick like a Larry Nance or Mario Chalmers real quick?
That's
Oh
what I thought you
no,
were going to say
no.
Chalmers. I think Chalmers fits into the. So you like Chalmers. Does Chalmers ever go before Rondo or more though?
I don't know.
No,
Oh.
no. I can answer that. No.
Yeah, as a Heat fan, I would also say no. So I got a name. I got a name for you guys that I was having a discussion with Liam about him the other day, and I don't. This is a guy who I think could only run against bench units with some weaker wings, and that is 21 Seth Curry, $1. And I'm not sure if he's draftable even for $1. I'm genuinely not sure, but I want to talk it out with you guys. I think if you compare him to someone like Joe Harris, who is also $1 off the bench, he provides a little more playmaking or ball handling than Joe Harris does, and he's not going to completely run the offense. He can help facilitate things and keep the ball moving a little better. My biggest issue with him is he made Kevin Huerter, aka Kevon Huerter, look like a god in these playoffs. And my concern is that any all-time draft level wing might be able to do that to him, even if scoring is not at all their strong suit. What do you guys think about him?
I like him because like Joe Harris wasn't like, he was Brick Harris in the playoffs, whereas Seth Curry was not. He was pretty good shooting in the playoffs. So, I actually get behind Seth Curry a lot. I think he'd be a really nice shooter off the bench to like almost like microwave the offense into like a run or something like that.
Totally. I think in some matchups he might not be playable. If that team always is going to have an elite wing who can target him out there, he's probably not playable. But in other matchups, he could be really useful. I just wanted to throw him out there.
Yeah, that's an interesting one actually. I really go ahead.
I think in the future, on the topic of Seth Curry, I think in the future, if I ever do need like a spacing two off the bench for $1, I'm 100% probably looking at Seth Curry as an option.
Nice.
I think the more fun question: would you rather have Seth Curry or Del Curry for $1?
That's a good one. I mean, I like Del Curry. I think he's a good player, but like we never draft him. So I guess I'd probably want Seth.
I'm going to take the guy we've seen in the modern game. That's going to be my tiebreaker. We just watched him do it. We know how he fits in a more modern offense, so that's my tiebreaker.
Yeah, that's fair. Del Curry did used to be like $2 in other servers, and that was always fun.
I think Del Curry is a good shooter, though, if I remember correctly. I mean, the whole family's like godly from three, but I just think that like Seth maybe offers a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I think.
Go ahead.
One last name I'll throw in terms of like someone who was relevant for a tiny bit when I first started bringing him up, and then he eventually fell off. Like Elmore Smith is too much of an all-time rim protector to just kind of die off in these.
Interesting. And so is Tree Rollins.
Yeah. Yeah. Elmore Smith, he was super athletic, super good rim protector. Solidly efficient big, if I remember right. His film was pretty. I remember Cecil did a film study on him and had some pretty solid notes. But overall, Elmore Smith for $1 is a pretty fun pick.
I can get behind that. I think one player that I've said I was going to mention, and I want to get it in before we move on. It would be 21 DeJounte Murray. I think he's really, really cool for $1. Just throwing out his base stats from the season. 15.7 points per game, 6.2 rebounds, 7.1 rebounds, 5.4 assists, and 1.5 steals. He's a really nice defender. His shooting's a little bad, but I think that he is decent enough on the defensive end, and he's a good enough playmaker that he's really nice for $1. And shout out to Russell Westbrook fan for taking him. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a pretty solid pick. I like DeJounte Murray for $1. I was considering this draft as well before I landed on the absolute GOAT Armstrong. Other player. His shooting relative from three relative to the league looks really good. Like, I think the league was around like 34% that year, and he was shooting 36%. So, like, compared to how the league has jumped, Darrell Armstrong could be a really solid three.
He's nice. He's a nice scorer off the bench for, again, like situations. And I'm pretty sure, Kevin, the last episode, was it? You said he drafted World B3 with that Jordan team of his.
That team is something else.
Yeah.
Looking at it right now.
Yeah, for sure is.
Oh my gosh.
For sure is.
Yeah.
I think, are we ready to move on to the weekly tradition we have now of
I think so. Those were some pretty fun names.
Yeah, those were some cool names for sure.
Yeah, I'll pull up our challenge sheet real quick. All right. I've got my team pulled up.
All right, so why don't you go ahead with your team first? We kind of went with team names that are related to Michael Jordan, because that's what the challenge is built around. It was built a $90 team around Michael Jordan, which is incredibly difficult considering that's half of the budget. So, Kev, why don't you go ahead? Tell us your team.
So for my $90 MJ team, I had the Emsley A. Laney High, Michael Jordan's high school.
Nice.
So my lineup was Hersey Hawkins, Michael Jordan, Kyle Korver, Kevin Love, and Dave Cohens. Then off the bench, I ran Paul Westphal, Jerry Sloan, Chet Walker, Jerry Lucas, and Theo Ratliff.
Pretty neat. You used your budget pretty well. Hersey's a nice one to have because Jordan's a good enough playmaker where you really don't need a point guard per se.
Yeah.
So I really like that. I know you had somebody else at first, but I think I took you away from Isaiah Thomas with Michael Jordan, probably the fiercest rivalry in all of sports. But like, if we're just looking at it from a pure basketball level, that fit works. But it's just one of those ones where it's like, can't look past the fact that they brutally hate each other.
Kev, I think your team gives a lot of room for Jordan to attack the rim. I mean, you've got three guys who are really spacing the floor from three. Cowens, he steps out to the mid-range. His game isn't just operating out of the post. So I like how at least your starting lineup is giving Jordan a lot of room to do his thing.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. Plus, like, Kevin Love that season is like really, really underrated. So I think like that's a really nice pickup. And Cowens is so nice too. He's arguably a top 10 center of all time, and for his value, I mean, it's hard to beat it.
Oh yeah.
So Gabe, why don't you tell us your team?
Sure. So I'm the Chicago Bulls. If you might have to think a little bit, but they matched up with MJ pretty well because he played for them for a long time. He won a few championships. He did some good stuff there, so that's why we went with the Bulls.
He only won a couple.
Only won a couple, just a handful. LeBron's way ahead of him. Anyways.
Oh, dear God.
My lineup is Jamal Murray, Jordan, Nicholas Batum, Dave DeBusschere, and Bill Walton for my starters. And to round out the bench, we went with De'Aaron Fox, Zach LaVine, Mike Dunleavy, Dan Roundfield, and Nikola Vucevic. I went with one of the lineups where I spent a lot of my money on select few players. And the reason I did this is that we had a condensed budget, and with the MJ already taking up half the budget, I decided to just buy in, make a really strong star duo that I was trying to build against your teams without looking, that maybe your teams wouldn't be able to compete with their other teams in the league. Because when the budget's limited like this, your star power matters that much more. And I have two players who are a super strong fit around each other, strong defenders, and I filled it in with role players. Batum is just going to keep them all moving. He's a solid defender. He can score. He's a good shooter. Honestly, DeBusschere's filling an extremely similar role there. Kind of 3-and-D, but he brings a little more. And then Murray brings some additional playmaking and scoring. And while Walton and Jokic operate from somewhat different spaces, we've seen the kind of two-man game he can run with Jokic and how he works off of him. And I think that he can stagger with Jordan, so we always have someone out there running the offense. And I just thought it was a good fit.
Oh, yeah.
So, that's my team.
That's a cool team. I really like that you went all in on a duo. I think Kev and I went with more of the approach of like, okay, we got to get good guys to fit around Jordan that aren't exactly expensive, and then we can have like a decent bench. You went for it. You went for the throat with Jordan and Walton, which is really neat because that's $75 of your budget, and you only had $15 left for 8 players. And you did a really good job of picking the guys that are cheap that can 100% start. Like Batum, I believe he can start now. I know earlier said I wasn't totally bought. Yep. And DeBusschere's really, really nice on defense. Offensive, it's another question, but defensively, he's pretty good, and I liked it.
Yep.
Plus, you put De'Aaron Fox in there, so I mean, I'm automatically gonna like that.
Of course, just for you.
So my team, I went with the Washington Wizards, where Jordan spent the bulk of his career in his prime. He was amazing with the Wizards. Everybody knows that.
Won a few championships there, right?
Yeah. So I built my team, and then I freaking hated it. So I completely rebuilt it. Just because I just really wasn't a fan. So I actually went with MJ at point guard because, I mean, he's a good enough playmaker. So my thing is I really like playmaking a lot. So my lineup is Jordan, the 90-91 season, which is goated. Then I went with a pretty nice off-ball spacer from the 60s in Sam Jones. I went with a nice 3-and-D guy in Doug Christie. I went with Boris Diaw, who's become one of my favorite players to pick because his playmaking is really, really nice from the power forward position. And then I went with a player that I think Kev likes to draft a lot, and Andrew Bogut. He seemed like a nice fit for $4.
Andrew Bogut.
And then I went with DeJounte Murray at point guard off the bench, which I think, I should have done that after my shout out earlier. I went with Bobby Phills. Rest in peace to Bobby Phills. He's a nice defender. And then I went with 2 guys that can give me some nice scoring off the bench. I went with 70 Lou Hudson for $4, and then I went with the Bombardier of Baton Rouge and Bob Pettit from 1959. He's a really, really nice scorer from that season, and I know sometimes we're scared to take 50 seasons just because it's 50s, 50s basketball, but I felt like Pettit was pretty modern for that time. Somebody who went down in price, and I was kind of shocked by it. I went with 74 Clifford Ray, who was just a really nice defender to come in. I almost started him, but I decided to go with Bogut. So yeah, that's what I went with. Bunch of guys that can help play make, guys who can score, guys who can play defense. I liked it.
Yeah, no, I like your team. I think one thing. So I think Diaw provides some playmaking from not the typical position, but we saw Jordan at his best with the playmaking forward. So we know that can work, and I think Christie keeps the ball moving. So between your playmaking with Diaw and Christie keeping the ball moving in his playmaking, it takes advantage of the off-ball abilities of Jordan and Jones pretty well. And then I like Bogut there just to anchor down the defense. And then Hudson obviously can come in. He's also a pretty good off-ball player, but he's also an offensive engine. So I like his fit on your team, and I like your team a lot.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So yeah, I think that's pretty much the episode. Kevin and I are pretty Say that again?
Yeah, we got to run through AD 22, name some $1 players, and I thought this budget challenge is actually pretty tight.
Yeah, and if you guys want, you should comment in the comment section what your favorite team is. We know we have some listeners, so definitely give your thoughts.
My team's already the best,
opinions.
but you can comment. Let us.
Yeah, I mean, you can comment on Gabe and Kev's. Theirs are totally inferior to mine, but you can just give them props if you want. I don't care. But definitely nice having Gabe on for this episode.
Oh, absolutely. I loved having Gabe on today.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I had a really good time, and I'm sad we didn't get to touch on Marcus Smart. You'll have to defend yourself a different time, but
actually, let's go real quick. Final topics, lightning speed round.
Okay.
The Reno Bighorns. They suck.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Podcast.
Listen. Let me just defend myself here quick. I kind of picked Marcus Smart for the meme because I figured we were going to talk about. This, and I thought it was pretty funny because I said before that I think he should be a $3 player.
Yeah,
and
put
I
that on
just
screen.
go for him at 7. Yeah. So I'll put the screenshots on there to show how much of a hypocrite I am. But to play along with a meme, my rotation had a photo of Marcus Smart on it. Usually I pick the best player, but I went with Marcus Smart just to play along with a meme. I should have gone with Sam Jones. I think someone mentioned that, but I think Cold Blooded and I decided on Marcus Smart as our option, and I kind of regret it, but I had fun building the team. But yeah,
it's a fun team. I commented on this earlier. I think Jerry West and Grant Hill is very talented, but Marcus Smart, Boris Diaw, Jack Sigma as your other 3 starters, I don't think that's getting you very far.
It might not, but I think that they provide some nice spacing, even though Marcus Smart, like Jerry West and Grant Hill, are probably going to have to tackle him from shooting. But defensively, I know some people are saying it's towards the bottom. The front court situation, it's a little mid. But it's still a small positive on defense. I know Kev likes to usually cap by saying Dirk Nowitzki is a positive defender based on this one stat.
Slight positive.
Yeah, but I think my perimeter defense is pretty solid because Marcus Smart is a good defender. I don't think any of us can deny that. But I was a hypocrite, so I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I was a hypocrite.
You're forgiven. You apologize on pod. It's all good.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty open with people calling me out. I'll admit when I'm wrong. There I was wrong. I panicked, and I picked Marcus Smart for $7. For $4 more than I said he should be going for. So, anyways, great podcast. Thanks to Gabe for coming on. We'll see what we got next week with the budget challenge.
And see you on the next episode of the Catch a Drafter.
I'm Chris Hansen.
Sir, we just found you selecting Marcus Smart. Why don't you take a seat?
Why don't you come have a seat? Anyways,
this was a really good episode.
For sure. And we will see you next week. Peace.
We'll see you next week. Thank you.
Peace.
Peace.